Bam! Hello and welcome to this Patafour modding tutorial. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make a background, and you can see in the video as I'm speaking me doing a time lapse of me creating a lovely mushroom themed background that we're going to try and get into Patafour today. I'm just sort of making a mushroom and all that and what I'm using, the program, is Inkscape, and Inkscape is a vector editor. Now that's quite important, making a vector image, because it means that no matter how far you zoom in, the edges and the lines will always stay crisp. There's no pixelation, and that's going to end up being quite important because we're going to need to export any lovely backgrounds that we've created at multiple different resolutions for the game. So we're going to need to be able to do that using this. Alright, so now that we've got our finished background in Inkscape, the next thing that we're going to need to do is find the Patafour resource directory. So what that means is basically all of the places where the game files for Patafour are stored. So the default place for that, unless you changed it when you installed it, should be in, if you go down to here and press %appdata%, then that will take you to your user app data roaming. And then you can look in here, there's probably quite a few if you like to play games. You can go to Patafour, and then in here we've got the Patafour, but this resource is here. This is for the launcher, so we don't want to go into this resources. We want to go into game and then resources. Now in here we've got quite a lot of files, and we're going to have to change quite a few of them. So the first thing that we're going to try and do is we're going to go to graphics and then background. And now here you can see that we've got quite a few different backgrounds. These are all the different backgrounds from the different levels, including some unused ones like Nanjaro Hills, Evil Massive Adamants. They aren't used in the current version of Patafour at least. Alright, so what we're going to want to try and do is we're going to take this lovely GG Cliffs file that's representing the third mission in the game. And we're going to copy and paste it, and we're going to give it a lovely new name. I'm thinking Mushroom Gorge. And we're going to want no spaces in there. So now we've got this lovely files from GG Cliffs, and we're going to look through them in a little bit more detail. So first of all, we've got a bunch of image files here. So we've got 1, 2, and 3, and we've got 4 copies of each of these. And these are at the different resolutions which are used for the different textures. So if you have, for example, the game on the lowest quality, then you'll probably use this one. Yeah, this one here. You can see this is 151 kilobytes, so this is a very small texture. In fact, if we go to the properties, details, we can see that it's 714 pixels tall. Then if we go to U, this is the ultra one, the highest settings, then this one is 1427 pixels tall. Now we need to remember this number because we need to know how tall we want our image to export. So if you've seen the GG Cliffs in the game, the background is about as tall as the window. So what that means is that if we want something to be maybe as tall as these mountains are in GG Cliffs, then we need it to be about 1400 pixels tall on the Ultra preset. So let's just go through quickly and try and export some images for each of the different layers for the parallax in the background. Now, what is parallax? Well, when you're in Patapon, you may have noticed that when you're in a level and you move forward a little bit, the background, it moves as well. But the different parts of the background move at different speeds. Like very far away cliffs move quite slowly, whereas rocks and flowers that are very close to you move quite quickly. And this is an effect that's called parallax, and it really brings the level to life. It makes it look very, very cool. So we're going to do that. I mean, you can make your level background without parallax. You can just have one layer, but doing it this way looks way cooler, and I want to show you guys how to do it. So I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to make this here have 4 layers. What we're going to do is we're going to have the mountains as one layer. We're going to have these trees, these mushroom trees, as another layer. And then we're going to have these background hills as a third layer. And then we're going to combine these sort of strange seaweed grass things and the very front hills as the topmost layer. And if we do that all correctly, then we should see them all moving at different speeds, and it will look super duper cool. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need to try and do is we're going to need to try and separate these out and export them separately. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've gone into here, my documents folder. I've created a folder called Mushroom Gorge, different to the one that's in the Patafour directory. And I've exported each of the different layers in here, like this. So you see I've got 1, I've got 2, I've got 3, and I've got 4. Now one of the things to note here is that I've made this have a particular height, so that this one is exactly 1000 pixels tall, this background mountains, and then the other ones have been exported with the same settings for the pixel DPI here in Inkscape. Basically what that means is that they'll all stay the same size relative to each other, which is good. We want that. Now what do we need to do here? Well, these aren't quite finished. Now there's a problem. The first problem is that it won't wrap around very nicely. So if I go to here, this layer I used to export them, then if I put, oh my goodness, if I put this on the end here, you can imagine sort of as the level is progressing forwards and you get to the end of this, you want to be able to see the start of the next one. There's going to be a sort of horrible thing like this. This doesn't look very good, right? We're going to want it, maybe to look a little bit nicer, sort of, maybe more like that or something. I don't know, but you can kind of get the idea. We don't want it to just look symmetrical, right? So what we're going to try and do is we're going to go into here. We're going to edit it a little bit more. What I like to do, not with Paint, I like to open it with GIMP. Now GIMP is basically very similar to Photoshop. It's free. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and we're going to double the width of the canvas. So if I find image here, canvas size, and I'm going to multiply that width by 2, resize. Okay. Oops. What have I done wrong there? I've done something wrong. Times 2. Resize. There we go. Now I'm going to take a copy of this. And I'm going to move it over. I'm going to move it so that it is exactly there. And I'm also going to move it so that it exactly touches the bottom of the image for both of these layers, because we want it to be perfect. There we go. Right. Let's also check the edges of the image to make sure that there's not a gap there, because if there was like a 1 pixel gap here, obviously we'd see a vertical line gap in the background. So it's always good to bring them into an editor like this after you've exported them from Inkscape, because otherwise you might not be able to see some of these issues. Yeah, so look, you see, it looks like there might be a 1 pixel gap on this side. So I'm going to move this 1 pixel over, and it's at the bottom. there's a tiny gap between these two now because I've moved it over. So I'm going to use the arrow keys to just move it 1 pixel at a time, very precisely. Lovely jubbly. Alright, so now I'm just going to go in here. If I merge these two layers together, and then I can touch it up a little bit. I can sort of make it look nice. So if I get this color, I'm going to make a nice big brush with a hard edge. Okay, why is it like that? There we go. So that's sort of smoothed it out a little bit, maybe a little bit more. There we go. Awesome. Now we can just take this. We can put it at the end over there. Oops. Yep. Where's that gone? Now we can try and line these up. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm just quickly making it so that they are all lined up correctly. And then if I've done my job properly here, then it will wrap. When you get to the end of the level, there won't be any artifacts where one part of this texture joins and the next starts. So then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to try and take a little bit more than is necessary. And that just means that we can get it just right. Okay. No, that's not good. That's not the right side. Yeah, there we go. Let's try and copy some of this. In fact, let's do that. So I've added it in its own layer. We're going to move it over. I'm going to try and line it up with this again. Okay, that seems correct. Boom. So now I can be reasonably sure that the join will look something like this, which is, I'd say, pretty acceptable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to export it, but instead of exporting it as 1.png like before, I'm going to call it 1_u for ultra settings. So what that means is this one will be what is used for the ultra settings. And then for all the other settings, they need to be progressively smaller versions. So if we go back to our mushroom gorge here, we can see that we've got ultra settings, high settings, medium settings, and low settings. So the difference between ultra and high, we've got 1400 pixels high on ultra. We've got 714 on high. So if we bring out our calculator, we can see that 714, I think, times 2. Yeah. And then there's a little bit of rounding there. But you can see that the high is half the size of the ultra, both in height and width. So if I was to now take this and I was to scale image, and I was to half the size in every dimension, scale, now I can export this as 1H. There we go. Export. Awesome. And we can just keep going with this. You know, we can use all of the different sizes that are available to us. But I'm just going to do that off camera. You can kind of get the gist of exporting each of these layers. All right. So I've successfully exported all of the different layers at each of the resolutions that I'm interested in. So obviously I would go ahead and do the medium and low resolution ones as well, but just for the moment I'm going to test it with the ultra and high. So I'm just going to select those ones that have H and U, and we don't need the originals, and I'm going to copy those into our Mushroom Gorge folder in the Patafour resource directory that I mentioned earlier. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete some of this HGG Cliffs stuff that was in there from when we copied it. Now we've got our files in there. So we're going to open up this param.dat file now. So this param.dat file contains the information of how these layers are going to be stacked on top of each other, what colors they are, and all sorts of interesting information like that. It's also going to contain some information about what color the sky is going to be. And that's what we're going to look at first here. So we have 4 numbers and then a semicolon and 4 more numbers on this first line here. This first line controls how the sky is going to look. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to select my sky that I've created, and I'm going to have a look at what color the top of this gradient is. So I'm going to make sure to switch it to RGB because I need to know what color it is in RGB, the very top of this gradient. So now if I go to here, I can see that this is 16, 160, and 141. So I'm going to take those numbers for RG and B, and I'm going to put them in here. So we have 0. This first number is the number for the position in the sky that we have that is going to be this color. Then the next number is the R value at that position. So 0 is right at the top, and then 16 is the red color for right at the top, 160 for the green color, and 141 for the blue color. And then we've got -1, so this is the very bottom of the sky. So I'm going to select the bottom color, and that's just white, we can see here. So I'm just going to put in 255, 255, oops, and 255. Now that's the gradient for the sky. Next we're going to need to set up how many layers we have and each of our layers. So here we can see that HGG Cliffs had 3 layers. I'm going to go ahead and add a 4th. Now we have several sections in this, and obviously they're also separated by commas. So the first section here, this is going to be the name of the layer in this folder here. So you see it says 1.png, so it's going to look for 1.png. And the game engine itself will add this _u or _h just for the settings that the player has. So you don't need to worry about that. You just put it without the _u or whatever. Then we have the vertical offset. So this is how far from the top of the screen is it going to put this image, and I think it calculates that on medium settings. Now I'm just going to leave those as they are for now. We can test it and come back to this. Then we have the parallax speed. So this is sort of a measure of how far away it is. So if it's -1, it's going to stay stationary on the screen. It's not going to move at all, no matter how far forwards or backwards you go. So if it's like -0.9, it's going to move incredibly slowly. And if it's 0, then it's going to move very, very quickly indeed. And if it's actually a positive number, then it will move like the other way, it just looks strange. So don't put positive numbers here. So we're going to have 1.png, that's our mountains in the background, and I think I'm going to put that at 0.85. Oops. Then I'm going to put in our trees, and I want those trees to move relatively quickly, so I'm going to say 5, 5. And then we've got the hills in front of those, so I'm going to say 4, 5. And then we've got, actually, you know, I'm going to leave those at 6, 6. And then we've got the hills in front of those. I'm going to put those at 0.45. And then we've got the sort of grass hills, these ones here. And I'm going to put those at -0.35. Then after that, we have 3 numbers. And you can see that those are 255, 255, 255. That's an RGB value again. So if you were to make this something like green, then the game engine would apply a green tint to your background. So actually, some of the default levels use this. If we go and we have a look at Patafour Forest, you can see that the pictures that it uses, if we look at like 4 here, a grayscale, and then it colors it green in the actual param.dat. If we look in here, yeah, you can see, look, it's got like a green color, this red, green, and blue. Yeah. All right. Let me just find our mushroom gorge again. So that's all set up. I think we're already almost ready to check it out in game. So the next thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make sure that we have an actual mission that contains our background. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about how to create your own mission, but what I'm going to go here is we're going to go back right to the start here for the game folder. We're going to go into resources. Remember not to go into the launcher resources. And then we're going to go into missions. Now we have a bunch of missions here, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that you've played through the game at least once. And so you've probably completed the very first hunting mission at least once. So if you've done that, then that means that you're not on mission 1-0, because that's the mission that you get when you start the game. You're not on mission 1-1, because that's the very first time you play the hunting mission. You're on mission 1-2. So this is the hunting mission that will appear in your world map. So we can see here, hunting on Sheeta Valley. Now what we're going to do is we're going to replace this Sheeta Valley here with our own background, the same name that we gave the folder earlier. So we're going to call it Mushroom Gorge. You see, if we go back to background, we can see that that's this folder here. So previously it was Sheeta Valley, now we've changed it to be Mushroom Gorge. We're not going to change anything else here because, again, I'm not going to go into how to modify the missions. That's for a later tutorial, but for now we're just going to do that. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to launch the game directly instead of using the launcher because it's a little bit easier. Alright, I'm just going to load up my save file. What do we have here? So we can see that it looks in the background like it's going to be Sheeta Valley, but I suspect when we load it, it will in fact have a different background. Let's have a look. And it may look a little bit crazy. Okay, so we seem to have done something wrong here. I'm going to see if I can figure out what exactly it is that I've done wrong. Alright, I figured out what the issue is. It didn't take very long. It's just that there are two different sort of missions for the hunting. There's one where the chest spawns and one where the chest doesn't spawn. And we only changed the background on one of those. So we basically had a 50-50 chance to see our background first try, but we just got unlucky. So all you need to do is go to the other one. So we got mission 1-2 and also mission 1-1 and make both of those be Mushroom Gorge. Then we should be good. So if I go to here now and I try and load it again, it should show up. So let's have a look. See if we can get it to show up this time. Yep, let's depart. Alright, ooh, I'm excited. Let's see if we can see our lovely Mushroom Gorge. Okay. Wow, look at that. There we go. Excellent. So if I move forwards, backwards, we can see, look, the mountains, they don't move very fast. The mushrooms, even less so. And then this foreground moves quite quickly. And that gives this really awesome effect where it sort of looks very, very three-dimensional and alive. So hopefully you guys found this useful. Obviously, if you have an issue where maybe the grass is like up here or something, or you can't see it, it might be that the Y offset is too big or too small. So if that's an issue, you're just going to want to go into your resources, graphics, background, Mushroom Gorge, param.dat. And you're going to want to tweak these numbers here. The first number after the name of it, you're going to want to change to maybe be bigger if it's flying in the sky, and to be smaller if you can't see it, because maybe it's buried under the ground. Then another issue that you might come across is you might find that your background doesn't appear at all. Maybe you can only see the sky. Now that will happen if the game can't find the picture files that are in here, so it won't be able to load them if it can't find them. So the issue might be, for example, if you're like me and you've got 1_h, but you don't have 1_m, then if I was to switch this to medium settings, this wouldn't show up at all. So obviously you can fix that by exporting it for all of the resolutions, and then it should work whatever resolution you have. If you've still done that and it's not showing up, it could be that in here your name of your picture, the layer, doesn't match the name here. So remember, it has to be if it's 1_h here, it needs to just be 1.png here. You need to leave off this underscore part, because that's for the internal game engine to sort out. Alright, so hopefully you guys will all be able to make beautiful backgrounds for your levels, and you'll be able to show me them all in the Patafour Discord, which you should definitely join. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.